Hello, Forge fans. Anthony Urciuoli with you. It is the match day preview. A bit of deja vu. I feel like we've already previewed a Valour Forge match this week. So back-to-back matches on the road in Winnipeg against Valour. Forge not getting the result they wanted in the first one, losing 1-0. And ultimately, it was a match that Forge was unhappy with on multiple levels. They were unhappy with the way the match ended, with a little skirmish at the end between two teams that clearly feeling the effects of the playoff push and what's becoming a rivalry between these two clubs. But Forge also not happy with the way they started that match. Here's head coach and technical director Bobby Smirniotis talking about the way Forge started in that loss to Valour on Wednesday night.
I thought we came out and, to be honest, we didn't start well. Then from the run of play, from a couple of mistakes of ours, we're down 1-0. And now we've given some life to an opponent to defend a little bit deeper and do all that. But I thought our reaction was good in the last part of the second half. We created some very good opportunities. They've cleared one off the line there. And I thought, again, we started well in the second half. Somewhere we're missing that little bit of punch in the final third to get into the spaces that were available, that we saw were available before the game. They were available in the game, and we just didn't take advantage of them. And then you're looking for an opportunity, and as the game goes on, obviously for Valour, it's a very important game for them as well, and they're very comfortable just sitting back and soaking up what pressure they need. And, you see what you get from there.
Now, if the match in review is still available, by the way, if you want to go back and listen to that or watch it. Jessica Lisi, who was co-hosting with me that match in review, we were talking throughout the match, and Jess said something interesting that I thought really stood out at the end of the match as well, and that it doesn't look like Forge. It hasn't looked like Forge over the past couple of weeks. It's just they're not playing their game. Here is Alex Ashenyoty-Janssen after that Valour match. His comments on Forge's winless streak, which is now, up to 4 matches.
I think Coach said it. We didn't come out our best, me including. I think the quality we put out is not good enough, and we get punished for it in the beginning of the game. And then I don't know. It feels off. We feel off. We have been feeling off the last 4 games. And I think we need to come together as a group, all of us, and find what we had during that 6-game win streak.
Yeah, prior to this, in the last 4, it's been 3 losses, 1 draw. They had a 6-match winning streak going into that. So thankfully, because of that winning streak, Forge is in still pretty good position. Top of the table, Atletico Ottawa, 39 points after 22 matches. Cavalry is 37 after 22, so they're 2 points back. Forge is at 36 points, so they're 1 back of Cavalry and 3 out of the top spot, but they played 1 less match than both Atletico and Cavalry. So still in pretty decent shape. And they have 1 point on Pacific, who is level on matches, and then Valour. Why? I mean, Valour's been on fire, and it's because they are playing for their season. This is the definition of desperation football. Valour with 33 points. They're 2 points out of a playoff spot, but they've also played 1 more match than Forge and Pacific. With a win, though, Valour can move into the top 4, tied with Forge, and potentially leapfrogging Pacific, depending on what Pacific do this week. So Valour needs this. They need 3 points. Forge, this is not a match you can lose. You cannot drop another 3 points to Valour. Not only are you allowing Valour back into the playoff picture, you're losing ground on the 2 clubs ahead of you. Typically, historically, 50 points is kind of the benchmark of if you want to finish atop of the table. I know that, this league's been around for 3.5 years. Historically speaking, 50 points should guarantee you that top spot. And with all the parity happening this season, 50 will probably get it done. Forge is at 36 right now. So how do they get 14 points over the last 7 matches? Well, let me break this down for you. Because it's looking better than it feels. And that's okay. If you're a Forge fan and things are feeling kind of low right now, it means you're used to some pretty incredible things from this club. And if you're Forge and you heard it, Forge is very disappointed in the way they've been playing, but they're still only 3 points out of first place with a match in hand. So it just goes to show you the level, the expectation level is higher than probably anywhere else in the Canadian Premier League. So here's what Forge is looking at. They have Valour. So here we're talking about them needing another 14 points or so. So we're looking at 5 more wins over their final 7 matches. Valour this week. Then they're home to Cavalry. We know how good Cavalry is, but if Forge wants to beat the club, if Forge cannot win these home matches, regardless of the quality of the other club, maybe they don't deserve to be in top spot. I mean, maybe that's the harsh reality. You have to be able to get your wins at home. And Forge has struggled recently. So let's say Forge, they're at home to Cavalry. That's a September 10th game. We'll have more on that, by the way, because there's a fantastic promotion for the fans looking to attend. So let's say Forge picks up their 3 points at home to Cavalry. They're at Pacific. You know it's going to be a tough one. At Edmonton, very winnable. Home to York, very winnable. Home to Pacific, winnable. Home to Halifax, winnable. So if they can get 3 points against Valour, they will have 5 more matches at home, and 5 more wins should lock you up that top spot. So win in Valour, you can even drop points in one of those home matches if it comes to that. So this is a huge opportunity for both clubs, and Forge looking to avenge that 1-0 loss. Now, let's get a little more familiar with the opponent, being Valour FC. Let's head over to Winnipeg. Ed Tait, he is a Hall of Fame journalist. If you're at Tim Hortons Field and you're up in the press level ever, you can get a glimpse of the Canadian Football Hall of Fame, the writers and the broadcasters and the journalists. Ed Tait is up there. He's a Hall of Famer. He covers the Blue Bombers for the Canadian Football League, but he also covers Valour FC. He is their senior reporter, and he joins us now. So Ed, I was one of the people that, at certain parts in the season when I saw those top 4 on the table, I was one of the people that counted Valour out. And, they may be surprising many. Is it a surprise, this late surge here by Valour?
Well, given where they were maybe a month ago, Anthony, probably a little bit. But at the end of last year, if you recall, they went on that run at the end of the season and basically were a goal short of making the playoffs. And they decided to keep a lot of the roster intact. And so I think they came into this season thinking that they could hunt down one of those 4 teams. They gave away a lot of points early in the year, and that could still cost them in the end. But they started to play some decent football fairly recently, and it's starting to show. I think they're 4-1-1 in their last 6, and they've had some clean sheets in there too. So there's a lot going right for this team right now.
Maybe talk to us about the scene at Investors Group Field Wednesday night with Valour and Forge. Was that as close to a playoff game? I mean, did it feel like a playoff match?
Absolutely. There's a lot of pressure on Valour. They've got to hunt down one of those 4 teams above them to make the playoffs. And so they've sort of been in this tense mode for a while. You can see it in their training. There's, it's just a little bit testier than usual. And then, boy, I'll tell you what, though, I could pay to watch those teams play a 7-game series if there was. It was like last night. It was something else. I don't know what brought it out of both teams, but as the game went on, it got nastier and nastier, and we saw what happened at the end of the match, and I think that's probably going to carry over into Sundays as well.
Yeah, and we'll definitely talk about Moses Dyer in a second. Forge is used to playing against clubs that use that low block and that to all out defend. But what Valour did, and I mean, it caught me off guard a little bit, was even though Valour was defending, they still got a lot of quality offensive chances through their counter and through their transition. Is that a part of Valour's game that's evolved, or has that always been there?
I think it's always been there, Anthony. You're right about I'm not going to pretend to be too much of an X's and O's guys when it comes to the soccer, but they have changed their shape fairly recently. They were more of a traditional, back 4. And in the last few matches, they've gone to a 3 with their fullbacks wider and pushing more into the midfield, and then they drop back. And when they're defending, it's almost like a 5-man back line. And when they got that early goal, I think they really kind of retreated into that. But you're right. What they do really well, and we saw it on the De Brienne goal, they use their speed very well. They like the bigger fields. Both Tim Hortons and IG Field are Canadian Football League fields too, so they're bigger than, say, Clark Field in Edmonton or Starlight Stadium in Victoria, and they like to use that space with their speed. And I think we saw that on Valour's goal, and that makes them pretty dangerous on transition when you have a guy like Sean Rea too. So, these two teams, if you look at the numbers going into last night, they were both ranked first and third in goals for and goals against. Forge being first, Valour being third. So again, maybe that says something about the points that Valour gave away earlier in the year when you have some pretty good numbers like that.
Yeah, and you mentioned some of the fireworks after the match Wednesday, and I agree. We'll probably see more of the same on Sunday. You had Tristan Henry kind of in the middle of it for Forge, and the fans booing him whenever he touched the ball in stoppage time. And I'd imagine Forge fans probably feel the same about Moses Dyer. How big, the void that he will leave on Sunday, just maybe put into words how big that void is.
Well, he's their leading scorer. He's their all-time leading scorer in franchise history, as short as that may be. He brings kind of a fire. We saw it last night. He can get under people's skin, and we saw that in the match Wednesday. He's just he kind of drags this team when they're in a lull. He pulls them into. He has such a competitive fire. Him and Diego Gutierrez in the midfield just seem to be. To have that edge to them. I guess that's the polite way to put it. Some people from Forge might not like it to be termed as an edge, but it's going to be a void. We'll see what they do with their roster. I know Philip DeSantos, the GM head coach, mentioned after the match he was disappointed that Moses got pulled into that late in the game, like the 99th minute. The game took forever to finish. And because he was already on the 1 yellow, so he'll miss Sunday. They started Walter Ponce up front on Wednesday. Could probably go back to that. They've got any number of options for the midfield, so we'll see what they can do. But it is going to be a hole in their lineup.
So are they a different team with Dyer out of the lineup? Would anything change? I know you didn't want to get too much into the X's and O's, but just from a philosophical standpoint, does Valour change when Dyer's not in the lineup?
Well, it's weird what they do. So last night they had Walter Ponce at the 9 and Moses dropped back into the midfield, which is he's usually the 9. So again, his versatility also means that they're not locked into what they might do with him out of the lineup, because they could play a different night. Could put Ponce back at 9 and play a different midfielder, or I'm not sure what they'll do. There's all kinds of options still, and Daryl Fordyce came off the bench last night. He's a possibility. Matthew Catavolo, who was a sub that didn't play last night. This is one of the things that I'm sure Forge is going to try to manage too on Sunday, is that will be Valour's third match in a week. And so Rocco Romeo, who scored the winning goal against Pacific on Sunday, never even saw any minutes last night, but I wouldn't be surprised if he gets some time on Sunday. So we'll see how they're off today. They'll be training on Friday. I might be able to get a sneak peek at what they're up to then, but they do have some options. Let's put it that way.
And we fans in Hamilton will know that Winnipeg supports their sports teams. Of course, you have the Jets, but the Blue Bombers as well. How has the city embraced Valour? Which is, the CPL. We had that first year, which was pretty solid, and then COVID slowed the momentum a bit for a couple of seasons. Is soccer back in Winnipeg?
Anthony, I'll be honest, the attendance numbers aren't where people were hoping. And, it was hot in Winnipeg on Wednesday and it was over 30 degrees. I'm not sure if that's a factor. I've heard from a lot of the soccer community that there was we had a really wet spring. And so a lot of local soccer games were canceled or postponed. And it's been into the summer where kids are still playing on every single night. And sometimes parents want a break, and they don't want to be on a night off dragging their kids to a soccer match. So I think attendance has been a little bit sluggish, I'll be honest. Valor had a really good start to 2019 in terms of attendance. I think the average was about 5,500 to 6,000. And then, we know what happened in the Island games and with COVID. And then last year, starting in the kickoff bubble here in town, that didn't help anything. And then team has struggled to score goals at home, and they haven't been winning a lot of games at home, which doesn't help to bring out the casual fan. I think there's something there. I think this is a soccer town, and it could really grow. And it's going to take some patience, which is hard to convince people sometimes to remain patient when the numbers aren't necessarily there.
And Sunday, it is a weekend game, afternoon. Maybe the attendance will be a little, I don't know what the temperature is going to be over there in Winnipeg, but you would think a Sunday game might bring a little more in the attendance, although it is a long weekend. So that might be working against them too. So either way, I mean, the atmosphere, it sounded great. So when you're watching the game, I think that's as a league, I think you're looking for at least the optics to be there. And the empty seats aren't great, but the noise level was high. So in terms of supporter groups, are there multiple supporter groups in Winnipeg?
Well, the main one is the Red River Rising, the Trench, and those are the fans that you hear through the whole game. Those guys are great. They, from even before the start of the match to the very end, even after the end, they are just going loud all the time. It's impressive. We need more of them. We need more supporters groups, more fans. It slowly comes. It's a build. And again, I think sometimes, you hate to say it's a results-oriented business, but it is oftentimes. And the way Valor is playing now, that's going to certainly help the product. You're right about Sunday being a long weekend. The Bombers play that day in Regina too in the Labor Day Classic, so that's always a factor. But I know some of the diehard sport fans will love it because it's almost back-to-back Valor, and then they can hustle home to watch the Bombers in Regina. The Trench and Red River Rising people are spectacular, and if we could duplicate that in a couple more sections in the building, it would be fun. You've seen it. It's the same as Tim Hortons Field. Those big stadiums, CFL stadiums, they look good on TV, and when they're full,
right,
it looks big time for the CPL.
Yeah, we just need to get to that point or back to it, because like you mentioned, that first season went really well in Hamilton too with attendance, and pandemic really just kind of killed some of that momentum. But I mean, this is a league that was built from scratch, and all things considered, I think it's been a pretty solid 3.5 years in all the adversity the league's had to face. So after seeing that match now, you almost want to see a Valor Forge playoff game after what we saw last match. So part of me, maybe hopefully not at the expense of Forge, but seeing Valor get in would be great, and maybe a team like Cavalry or Pacific, who's already had their opportunities, can get bumped down. Ed, I appreciate the time. Thank you so much for this.
Yeah, thanks, Anthony. It is going to be funny because, Valor is 2 points out of a playoff spot, but only 6 out of first place overall. That's how crazy the top 5 is right now. It's going to be fun right down the stretch here. Thanks for having me on, Anthony.
Yeah. And just to close your point, when all these clubs are playing each other, they play each other so often. These are 6-point swings here and there, so anything's possible. So I learned my lesson. Don't count out Valor mid-season when they're out of a playoff picture. All right.
Right on.
Take care, Ed.
Thanks, Anthony. Appreciate it.
All right, great stuff from Ed Tait. As expected, I do want to, at the time of this recording, Moses Dyer, Valor's leading scorer and their best player, you heard it from Ed there, he will not play in this match. He is going to be suspended because of the 2 yellows in the previous match. That second yellow coming in stoppage time, which, didn't go over well with his coach. That is going to be the only suspension unless something changes. I checked with the league. As far from what I've been told, Dyer, as of the time of this recording, is the only player that will miss that match. It's good news for Forge FC. And I have great news for Forge fans. September 10th, the September special. Before Forge plays Valor, or rather after Forge plays Valor, Forge will be hosting Cavalry FC. It's the Forge FC plus bench beer sampling match. Saturday, September 10th, 5 o'clock kickoff at Tim Hortons Field. For $29.99, you get a gold level ticket and a bench beer sampling. So for $30, You get your ticket, you get great seats, and you get a beer. And, as always, $5 beer until kickoff. So, I mean, what more could you ask for on a Saturday afternoon in September? Actually, I know what would be better. It'd be better if Forge was going into that match against Calvary playing for first place. And probably the only way to do that is for Forge to get 3 points against Valour. So that is where we are now. 2 o'clock Sunday in Winnipeg. Forge, Valour, wherever, however you get your Forge content, whether it is through social media, forgefc.ca, on YouTube, or via podcast. Plenty coming up for you, including 3 keys to the match. We'll get more into the X's and O's and what Forge have to do to secure 3 points against Valour on Sunday. And after that match, the match in review will be available. All right, should be a good one. Enjoy.
We are the Forge, the mighty, mighty Forge. You just don't think you understand.
Forge FC is prepared, and now you are informed. This has been Match Day Preview with Anthony Urciuoli on the Forge Audio Network. Subscribe on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts.